Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Arcane Archive. Today we have, once again, an absolutely just stimulating, salacious selection of stories for you that you're gonna love. And as you know, we love the alliteration here at the Arcane Archive. So we think that you guys are gonna enjoy today's episode of Cautionary Chronicles. Sammy, what's kind of the overall vibe we have for the people today for our delicious selection of stories?
I don't know, it's kind of all over the place. I mean, reading through these, I just thought, wow, there's just a lot of idiots on here. Unfortunately. Uh,
This is true. Honestly, we do have a bit of a varying course for you
yeah,
guys
it's
today,
it's kind of all
indeed.
over.
We got, people from a lot of just stereotypical neckbeard GMs, or just rather, insecure, just strange control freaks, to weird racist decisions and stuff, to just incredible, like, super special, extra special snowflake syndrome kind of going on. Overall, quite the wide and varied selection that we have for you today, and we hope that you guys do enjoy the ride, because we definitely we had some fun kind of picking these out, and we're looking forward to the aftermath to see how you guys all feel about these stories we have today. So with that being the case, as always, please be sure to like and comment on the video, subscribe and share the channel if you haven't already. It helps us out immensely, and we appreciate it oh so very much, as always. And with that, let's not delay any longer. Let's go ahead and dive right back down into the archive. Starting us off with the first story today. This one is titled, "Had a Stereotypical Neckbeard DM and Stupid Players Punish Me for Playing Raptor Jesus in the session that I wasn't even there for." For those of you who might not know, Raptor Jesus was, bit of a meme, bit of a popular meme back in the day, I suppose. I never really personally
Wait,
understood
wait,
it.
wait, wait. You're talking
Or
about like the little green guy?
yeah, like specifically like the green guy with like the long hair. Like it was a relatively known meme back in the day, when it was just like, yeah, Raptor Jesus. Yeah, it's like literally he's like uh basically it is also kind of known as, like, an immature, self-involved, teenage sounding gamer, like lolcat depiction of Jesus Christ with a velociraptor for a head. Like it literally is, like, he's got the hair, he's got like he's yeah. It was basically kind of to showcase just a number of immature people back in the day. And apparently this OP has been accused of trying to reinvigorate the meme in this dude's more serious campaign. So let's go ahead and see it. This is specifically by OP known as Action a Go-Go Baby. We were supposed to be playing a Oriental themes campaign. Yes, that's the word that the GM used, and asked everyone to make characters that would fit that particular style. The GM was the kind of dude who lived and breathed anime, had body pillows, unashamedly talked in real life about his waifu tier lists, etc. You get the idea. So, hey, the post says it back. A pretty stereotypical anime edgelord weeaboo dude that we love, of course, obviously. Garden variety, neckbeard boy. That's okay. This particular time was before the internet was seriously picking up enough to allow people to play online. So local play was all that we really had, and games were rather sparse. So I decided I wanted to make a sort of mystic / old wise man vibe, but I'd also always wanted to try a Dragonborn style character. So I ran it by him, and he liked the idea of my character looking a bit like one of those dragons from like Japanese lore / myth, with like a beard. Yeah, ancient, like longer dragons. I mean, very akin to what gold dragons look like in D&D. Like gold
That's actually
dragons.
kind of a cool idea outside
Yeah.
of the fact that this is from a Weeblord weirdo.
Well, I mean, to be fair, again, like, because he's seen plenty of anime and obviously most likely, Eastern influences is, I feel like, the best way to put that. He
Yeah.
probably would know. It's like, yeah, they're obviously in Eastern philosophy, dragons are usually depicted as they are sacred, beloved beasts of like fortune, power, strength, protection, all of that. And they often do have, like, those longer kind of, like, they almost have beards because they're usually considered like wise beings and creatures because they live forever. And so, yeah, I like that idea. I love it too. Again, D&D specifically has also for gold dragons up to this point, they took inspiration exactly from Eastern depictions of dragons. You know, gold dragons usually have much longer like necks, almost like they're like the more serpent-like dragons, and they also do have like, you know, they have like almost like those mustaches that you might find on more like older Eastern guys, where it's like they're like thin mustaches that are really long. So I thought that was a great idea. I'm happy that the GM initially was very accepting and even supportive of it. So with that being the case, dude was like, great, right? Sorted. Officially a dragonborn cleric, but you know, you get the idea. Anyway, the game starts and someone at the table, can't remember who, it doesn't really matter though, says, oh, you're playing a cleric and a dragonborn? Oh, yo, that's like that Raptor Jesus meme, right? Is that why you're playing Raptor Jesus? Because of a meme? I stare at him blankly. As, to be honest, that was super weird leaps of logic for anyone to make, but eventually just kind of settle on saying, no, that was not the inspiration for it at all. However, I did notice that the GM started giving me weird looks at that point, but decided to just pay it no mind. The whole table started joking about how my character, Raptor Jesus, was definitely that meme and how funny that was. The DM let it slide in a serious campaign. So, continuing on, I'm away for the second session because of family issues, and I end up coming back for session 3 to instantly be told before I even sit down or say hello to, roll a new character. I'm confused, obviously, so I ask what the GM is talking about. He goes on to explain that I tricked him into allowing a meme character at the table, and that he expected better of me, and how it was only appropriate that your character gets crushed to death by an avalanche, that the rest of the party somehow seemed to miraculously survive. What a thing. I ask again what the hell he was talking about, but then he just said, roll a new character or leave. No memes this time. Don't screw with my setting. So I left. In post. Yeah, see this here I feel like is a classic case of homeboy GM getting in the way, getting his own way here. Like, I don't know why the rest of those players also just decided to arbitrarily label OP's character as a Raptor Jesus meme character. Especially if like OP himself didn't necessarily even play him in like a, you know, a meme or jokey way that was like disruptive or like annoying or like whatever, you know, like it also doesn't make sense too if he didn't do that, why the GM was so butthurt about it, except for the fact that he was like everybody's saying like, oh, he got one over on the GM, or oh, he tricked the GM, or because that's literally what the GM says. Like, which again, it seems kind of strange where it's just like, bro, you literally heard the concept. And if he's not playing it like a jokey, meme character who's just being disruptive or annoying, then what does it matter? Like,
yeah, why do we care so much?
Like, why, yeah, like, did he actually trick you? Because he's playing the character exactly the way that he said
he was gonna
play the character, and you approved it. So it's like, what's the deal here? Like, some of the comments down below go like, yo, you dodged a bullet with this one, man. Even if you made the character with the meme in mind, the most important thing is how you play the character. Those guys sound like a bunch of man-childs. Thank you. That's exactly what I'm saying. OP response was like, they absolutely were that. Dude ended up shacking up with a teenager from a hyper-religious family, got her pregnant, the rumor goes intentionally because her religion forbade her for giving it up, and ended up marrying her. Last time I heard, they moved halfway across the world after they sold a house that her parents gave them as a present for the wedding. Can you even imagine raising a whole-ass child, a teenage ass, only for a skeevy neckbeard to get his sweaty paws on her? That's, man, yeah. What a way to go. What a way to go. Yeesh. I mean, that's I would also say, hey, how old was this neck? Like one of the other commenters was like, how old was this neck beard? This sounds like grooming. He was like, yeah, he was like late 20s, I think 27 from memory. She was 18, had graduated high school recently. Okay, so she wasn't technically underage, which that's I mean, it's slightly better, but it is still clear. Like,
Oh, you mean the bare minimum
there's
for not
there's
being a
still some
fucking...
clear problematic stuff here. And I'm not even talking about the age difference per se, because it's like, hey, after you get to a certain point, it's like, if you're both consenting adults, fair enough, fine. It's not really anybody else's business or whatever. It could still be a bit of problematic things, but like when she's still that young and you're at that point, like it's like, bro, there's some kind of problematic here. But you know
Well,
what?
there is also the fact that taking advantage of someone who lived a sheltered life,
I
whether
mean,
it be in
that's
a religious household, a cult, just any kind of very harshly sheltered existence, a weird, creepy old dude who can't trim his facial hair correctly should not be. And imagine what he probably looks sweaty and fat
I
and
mean,
fucking
I mean, I'm sure. Well, I'm
hangs
sure
out with
he
fake
probably didn't
pictures of
have the best
people.
personal hygiene.
Oh, someone who's
Um,
obsessed with people's pictures on a pillow. Fucking.
yeah, has actual unironic waifu tier lists and such.
And like,
Like,
I don't want to be that guy. I'm sure that there's some fine people
oh,
out there.
absolutely. Again, here's the thing. There's nothing
Albeit
wrong. There's nothing wrong with loving a hobby. There's nothing. Like, hey, hell,
that's
we play D&D for God's sakes. Like,
sure. When you put your hobby on a pillow and sleep with it is when I start to question your integrity as a human. But that's me. That's my opinion.
again, I would like to believe that even with that, we all need a little bit of comfort, right? We all need maybe that, good old blankie or baba, whatever have you, right? It's like, okay, sure. I feel like there's yeah, I don't just I
I'd
feel like
be
maybe
equally as
sight.
worried if a grown man had a blanket that they slept with every night because it was like their
Well,
pacifier.
my point
I would be
being,
just as concerned.
Well, my point being is like it might be a clear indicator that maybe you have some unresolved stuff that maybe you should probably work out in a more healthy manner. But at the same time, it's like if you're not hurting anybody, if this is a thing that provides you amount of comfort or security, and you're not hurting anybody, you're not it's like what again, screw everybody. Who cares? Who cares? It doesn't actually matter. But in this particular instance, though, I think this guy probably has gone a little over the edge in line of potentially actually being more problematic and harmful to a certain extent, especially because it is apparently believed that this was an intentional thing on his part, in which case that is 100% highly manipulative, 100% toxic, and not at all okay. But we'll never know for certain. But
Yeah, my rule of thumb is
I
when
think we're
you go to play
pretty
D&D with people and someone
sure.
says, "Hey, check out my waifu tier list I made yesterday." That's when you leave the table.
Hey,
That's me.
you want to borrow
Body pillow?
yeah, you want to borrow my Fate Stay Night
No.
blade body pillow if you like. Saber, would you like to borrow my Fate Stay Night saber body pillow? Yeah.
What's
She'll
the
protect you, man. Yeah,
what's
she's super
the
soft.
what's the character from Fate Apocrypha that
Oh my
is
god.
a dude dressed as a girl?
Yeah,
Fuck, I
yeah.
can't
Was he
remember.
also Saber? I forget like
No, no.
Oh, Jesus goodness. Just
I
there
can't,
are so many characters
I
like
can't
that too. Yeah,
remember.
the Lalita slash like Shotokan, whatever. But
Well,
you
it
know
was
what?
also, yeah, it was just a whole nother level. But
You
when
know
they start
what?
pulling out the body pillows at the game store, that's when you leave. And honestly, if they pull out the body pillow at the game store, you are allowed to make fun of them.
I mean, well, 100%. At that point, they're bringing it out into the world. So yeah, no, I mean
They're opening themselves up.
they are prepared at that point for I hope at least whatever's going to happen. But you know what? We start going to verging off into that territory. I think we let's reel it back on in. Let's move on to the next story for
What
the
do you
day,
mean?
Sammy.
Am I getting racist? Is that what this one is?
Oh yeah, no,
Oh
yeah,
yeah.
that's yeah. We're about to steer off from being a strange, cringy weeaboo neckbeard to being fantasy racist. Here, far better place for us to be, I think, overall for everybody's opinions. I'm sure. Why don't you go ahead, Sam? You let them know
Sure.
how does this gentleman here love
Sound
to display and project his thoughts and mannerisms.
like an asshole. New player decides that he wants to be fantasy racist. So this happened quite recently and isn't half as bad as some of the other things I've read on here, but was still rather annoying. Apologies if it's long. I have no ability to self-edit. Well, I wouldn't have guessed. I run an RPG meetup group and met a nice bunch of people there who wanted to try D&D. And despite it being one of my least favorite games, I have played it for around 20 years and I know it pretty well. So I knew I could give them a really good introduction to it, and they all seemed pretty fun, and I wanted to hang out with them more. In fact, I had just started dating one of them, so I may have been trying to impress her a little. Tips, Fedora.
Just
That's
maybe
what this guy fucking
slightly.
sounds like,
I
dude.
mean, no, look, even
Have you
right
wait, wait,
from
wait, wait. Have you seen the meme of the weird dude in Alaska who's like, I know how to treat a woman, and he's just like a fucking vampire?
yeah,
Please tell me you've seen that meme.
yeah.
That is what this guy reminds me
I mean,
of.
here's the thing. I literally, you picked this one out. I
I did.
literally read this through, and right from jump, I'm like, bro, like I don't want to go too hard right away. But first off, OP, this post is by OP, the Overlord one.
Oh, an anime fan.
And I mean that's what I'm assuming as well. But even just the way that you're coming off real heavy right out the gate, my man. Like no intentional offense here, but you're like right off the bat, you sounded a little douchey,
Yeah,
a little
here.
too self aggrandized a bit, but
Yeah,
like
it gets better. Don't worry.
oh, I know it does. Please go ahead.
I decided to run the Stranger Things starter kit adventure because a few Christmases ago, due to a misunderstanding with an Amazon wish list and my family being idiots, I got 3 copies of the thing and had never found a chance to run it.
I mean,
Just
like
return 2 copies. It's really not a big deal. Either way,
not just that, but
unnecessary.
This is what I'm saying. Like you're even like you got free shit for Christmas, and you're literally saying that your family are idiots.
I read this due to my family being fucking idiots.
Yeah, literally. I mean, that's what it's like. It's like that seems a little that's a little intense. All right. A bit intense.
Again. Also, I mean, I hate to be that guy, but a lot of stories that we read on here, there's just a bunch of unneeded bullshit. This counts as that. You could have said, "I got this for Christmas a few years back." That's where the sentence ends.
I mean, again, the fact that he felt the need to literally
they have
call his family being idiots, like
they said they have no way to self-edit. That's painfully obvious.
I mean, I feel like that's just an excuse for you to try and justify being an asshole, which is like, here's the thing. It's one thing, like it's like, you don't have to constantly manage, because I'm also not a huge fan of all the super uber political correctness, wokeness shit and stuff too. But you also don't, again, have to be an asshole. Like you cannot be as censored or not as restrictive without being a douchebag, which again, like I said, no offense intended, you're kind of coming off as a bit of a douche just right off the bat. Like, hopefully this might change as we go further down. I'm just saying, right off the bat, just as a bit of, maybe constructive criticism, maybe manage yourself a little bit better, because, you're kind of coming off a bit of a self-grandizing, self-loving douche.
But before we say that, let's see how he runs a game.
Let's see.
Yeah, ahead of the game, I told the players, 5 of them, that they shouldn't go for any wild, monstrous races and should make heroes who want to do good in the realm, so that we didn't have to deal with someone being an evil or horrible character who just wouldn't be on the same adventure or working with the party. I like that. That's fine. Making it known from the beginning, that's perfectly fine. Everyone made their characters with a lot of help from me, in parentheses, and we met up to play. For the intro, I gave some safety tools, and we discussed any lines and veils as I usually do. What is your choice of language? I always mention that I don't want any homophobia, transphobia, racism, sexism, or any of that rubbish in my games. I said that while as many D&D games might have racism built into it because of the different races, it wasn't a theme we were going to be exploring in this 2-shot adventure, which I'm using to teach the rules, and that it would be great if you could just assume that your characters were going to get on. In fact, there is no reason to bring races up at all, apart from their specific abilities.
Okay. I mean, sure, I can 100% appreciate that.
It's a 2-shot, so that's fine.
But that's what I'm saying. Like
calling it all blanketly rubbish, I think it devalues what individuality can be in a game like this, but it doesn't matter.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing. We've talked a little bit about this, I think, before as well, where obviously there are plenty of people who just, they want to run their games and they want to be like, you know what? I don't even want to deal with or have any amount of, homophobia, racism, trans, whatever, any kind of phobia or ism involved in my game. And it's like, okay, I mean, the problem being with that is that, on one hand, the way that is, especially for people and creatures and races, like a lot of them have legitimate reasons to dislike one another,
dislike each other,
because of how they kind of conduct things and in their way. But you don't. Okay, fine. It's your homebrew world, so technically speaking, You don't necessarily
Do
have to
whatever
do
you
that.
want.
But I will also say then, you know, because I also understand 100%, I agree with in terms of the party does need to be able to get along with each other, and they need to be there with
Yeah.
each other to go on the adventure together. I don't think it's a bad thing necessarily, again, to have, you know, they can have maybe some prejudices or they can have some ignorances, because that's, again,
Some stereotypes that they thought
yeah.
beforehand that is
And
now
then
unlearned.
with the intention, of course, to move past that, to
Yeah.
grow and expand, to be like, oh, wow, yeah, I didn't realize that. I was always kind of taught or told based off of my limited, you know, exposure or knowledge that this is kind of how this person or these people kind of worked or did things. Now that I'm experiencing it firsthand, that's an amazing moment to grow and to be able to be like, you know what? There might need to be some serious changes, not just for myself, but maybe even for where I come from and the education or the awareness there. Like, there are positive and constructive and healthy ways to incorporate these, you know, topics and these subjects and stuff in any game. I am never a particular fan or supporter of just shoving your head in the dirt or the sand and pretending like these things don't exist, because they do. Like, they just do. And it's difficult, in my opinion, to really be able to realistically justify how they don't exist, and yet other conflict still exists. Like, other people can still act and be like, people, this is kind of just how people and things can be based off of how, you know, people act. And so if you don't have this, if you don't have any of that, it's kind of difficult to be like, well, why would you have any kind of war or conflict then with anything or anybody at all?
Yeah,
Like,
I'd also argue, like, in a medieval fantasy or just fantasy
well,
in general, like, I will say, because it's fantasy, because there's things like magic and weird monsters and different realms and all things like homophobia, transphobia, I don't think would be as common in general, because who the fuck
I don't.
cares?
I was gonna say I don't think
Like,
Yeah, agreed. I don't. Because
racism and sexism to a degree, I think, make a little bit more sense to be more present or have more
I don't
plot
even know if
points. Not
sexism would as
maybe,
much
maybe not.
either. Technically,
There's
I think racism, I feel like, is the only thing that
is the
really
one that, like,
makes
definitely fits really
the
well.
most sense. Whereas, because again, like, you have literal goddesses,
Yeah.
right? Who are all powerful. You have god who are freaking war goddesses. So
Hmm.
it would be much harder for people, especially if you have magic and you have other thing where it's like these people are vastly more powerful even without the use of just simple physical might.
Well,
And so you'd have to
yeah.
respect that,
And
along with the
then,
fact where it's like, yeah, like there are plenty of races, like elves themselves, like they're pretty androgynous a lot of the time.
yep.
Like,
And there are literal shapeshifters and people who can change their
yeah,
sex at will.
all the time, and it's like people don't necessarily really care too much about that, like, because it's not like, that's like D&D is not like ancient, you know, medieval kind of stuff. They don't have that same mentality or the same, because of all the shit that like you have dragons who are, you know, who can shapeshift and change and stuff. Like, it's like, so it doesn't really matter
You
really in
might
that
run into
sense.
more problems in, like, a small rural area and stuff like
Yeah,
that. But
you
like,
know, again, people who are much more ignorant and less, you
yeah.
know, aware of magic and all that other stuff. But it definitely, again, it can still exist. And my point being is, with all of this, it's just it is a part of how mortal creatures function, but it doesn't have to be used as a negative or a just a destructive tear down force
No,
like it so often is in real life.
it's
Whereas,
more of a, you might have to work extra hard to gain favor with a dwarven innkeeper because most of your party is elves.
yeah,
Is that a bad thing? No, because it's not that they hate you just because you're elves. They just don't trust you. But if you prove
yeah,
yourself all the same, there's nothing wrong with it. They might
because
ask you some insensitive questions. They might throw some jokes your way. It does that really sour an entire game? I don't think so if it's done tastefully. There are overstepping. There
agreed.
are ways to do it, and we'll see here. There are ways that you go by that are not, in the best of intentions or done particularly classy or with any kind of
With
tact.
any, yeah,
So,
I mean, that's
but
the
there's
thing.
again, but
This stuff always should be done with intention,
yeah,
with
but
deliberate intention, and not
I
just
just,
fuck with somebody.
I just
Like,
hate calling all of it rubbish and basically alluding to the fact that it's useless in a story, because it's not.
I agree,
It's not
100%.
useless. But enter John. He said that he had played D&D once a while ago and couldn't remember the rules much, but was excited to play. He had made a half-orc sorcerer who was a tribal shaman who had come to spread the wisdom of his people. All good by me. He sent over his character sheet, which wasn't made correctly, so I sent him some feedback and advice to help him out. and then so then he would change things, completely ignoring what I had just said.
Yeah,
And then
basically
he changed stuff but ignored what he said at all.
Yeah.
This meant it took a little while to make his character, but I didn't get annoyed. Some people just don't absorb written information very well, and it can be a little complicated when you're making a spellcaster.
That's fair.
After I'd introduced the characters and the adventure, go and hunt down the
Cecil Hydra.
Oh, I got it the first. Okay.
I see that.
He has attacked farms and the towns and then goes off back into the woods, but the tracks mysteriously disappear. I ask the characters what they want to do. It starts weird with John instantly taking over the group, loudly telling them that we need to look around and find the swamp. Everyone is very confused as I had never mentioned a swamp. He is so confident about it, though, that suddenly everyone else thinks that maybe they weren't listening and had missed something. He was so confident that I flipped back through the book and checked the mission in case it did mention a swamp, and I just didn't notice. It didn't. After correcting him, they get back to discussing the plan. Then he ramps it up a bit more. As the characters start trying to interact, he turns to the only other guy in the group, an elven rogue who has been introduced as a folk hero, vigilante-style character, who is much loved by the common folk in the land. Think Robin Hood. And says something along the lines of, well, you're a knife-eared prick, aren't you? He continues to badger the rogue, accusing him of being a thief and a sneaky little elf, as well as some other racist stuff about elves. I was taken aback and asked why he was being so hostile, and his defense was, well, I am an orc, so I hate all other races. I clarified that racism was not a big thing in this game and wasn't a thing for orcs in this land, and also that he wasn't an orc, he was a half-orc, and also you wouldn't have any idea that this character is a rogue, so you are just accusing someone of being a thief for no reason. This didn't stop him until the guy playing the elf said in character, if you continue to say such racist things to me, then I will literally kill you. He then left him alone. Throughout the rest of the game, throughout the rest of the game, he continued to talk over everyone. The girl I was dating didn't get to say anything at all because whenever she would try and offer some advice, he would ignore her and shout over the top of her. When they got back to the cave, he made half the party go in ahead of him and check it was safe while he waited outside. They went in and checked the first room, which was empty, and then one of them said, should we go back and get him? And all of them thought for a second before saying, maybe let's just check the next room just in case. I got the impression that their characters, and possibly the players, were just happy to have a break from the guy. He didn't pick up on this, however, as well as they were doing all of this. He was very loudly having a conversation with another member of the party about stuff unrelated to the game. This became a reoccurring thing, him talking nonstop when he wasn't the center of attention. Us trying to continue and be heard over him, and then all of us having to explain what had just happened again when it got back to him, and then having to explain a third time because he didn't listen to the explanation. At the end of the session, I asked how everyone thought it had gone, and people remarked on how forceful his character was, and his excuse was that no one else was saying anything, so I just thought I should take the lead. I mean, he didn't wait for anyone to say anything before speaking, and when people tried to speak, he would just shout over the top of them. He also complained that he never got the chance to do anything in the game, even though he made the decision not to go into the dungeon because he was a squishy sorcerer who would die immediately. After the first session, I checked with everyone privately. Their feedback was that they enjoyed it, but struggled to concentrate with him constantly talking over the top of them, and that they felt uncomfortable with the casual fantasy racism he threw around. I readied myself to have a don't be racist, don't talk over other people chat at the start of the next session, a chat that I thought I would never need to have, but luckily he was ill and didn't come. So I'm going to say this right now. For someone who was talking about all of their experience and all of this shit and about wanting to impress a girl because you were dating a girl, you're kind of a pussy because you could have just stopped him from talking over people. It's not that fucking hard. We've talked about this so many times, and with some of the younger people on here, I have sympathy. Because they're younger people, they don't know yet. You're boasting about 20 years of fucking experience and all this shit, and you talk like you wear a fucking full suit to the laundromat, and you can't just tell people to shut the fuck. Like, come on, man. Like, and you know what? You 100% saved yourself in the second half because what you were saying was completely reasonable. You took the weird dickish writing from the first part and got rid of it, and I love that. So great job. What?
I mean, here's also though.
Like, you can stop this from happening by just telling someone to shut up.
Like, I mean, hey, you don't have to tell them to shut up. You can also just be like, sorry, actually, I think, she was trying to say something real quick, actually. What were you like? You can deliberately say, like, yeah, okay, just hang on 1 second. I think some of the other party members wanted to say something or give the thing. Like, you can do it, very, what do you call it when you are attempting to, not negotiate, but you are attempting to, like, talk. God, I can't think of the damn word right now. You can essentially what I'm trying to, you can do it in a way that is reasonable, fair, and non hostile, accusatory, or derogatory. You can do it perfectly fine. I will say though, everything he's saying about this guy, like, he's clearly being highly obnoxious and unaware. It
Oh,
seems
they're
though
always aware, Adam.
they're not. They're not.
Obnoxious people are still
Because
always aware because they're
no,
self-centered and
but
obnoxious.
that's the point being is that they're not necessarily aware, because awareness would have to take actually, like, not being like, it's almost like he's not even conscious of really what's happening. Like, he's just kind of like, it seems like, at least the way that he's written his shenanigans, he's coming off more as just kind of an ignorant, oblivious oaf who is just constantly like, he's excited to play, and he's overexerting himself way too much, and nobody said anything to him about it. Nobody's even talked to him about it. So my issue here is like, okay, he's clearly being disruptive, yes. The issue though being is that apparently, like, because again, here's the thing though, when the rogue literally said, if you continue to do and say this shit to me, I will kill you, he stopped then, didn't he left him alone, because the rogue literally said something to him about this. Now, the GM did tell him where he was just like, oh, well, racism and stuff isn't a thing here or whatever. But he's under the impression, because again, if he's played before, a little bit before, he's not wrong in that in most source material, orcs are canonically usually, like, hateful of other races. They're not racist really, because it's like, for instance, orcs also, ironically, they don't care about race. All they care about is strength. Like, so even if he's saying, like, well, he's like, oh, you're not an orc, you're a half orc, doesn't matter, because the orcs would literally allow a half orc into their fold. Hell, a half orc could literally become chief of an orc tribe if he was strong enough to do so. Like, they don't care about gender, really. They don't care about race. They don't, like, the only race that they probably do hate are elves, because of the fact that their gods, like, are mortal bitter enemies. Like, the only race that orcs would, like, truly just hate are probably elves. But other than that, like, or an orc just saying a knife-eared comment or whatever, it was just like, yeah, they would say that about, they say the same thing about dwarves. They'd be like, you short, stumpy, whatever. Like, they would say the same thing about other orcs. It'd be like, you limp-tusked, whatever. Like, they. So again, this this problem guy, right? Our problem player here definitely has an issue where he is not being nearly as socially aware and conscious as he should be, and he should definitely have a talk. Like, somebody like the GM should be talking to him about this. The GM should be trying to be like, hey, my dude, like, I specifically did want to stipulate, like, in this particular game, in this 2-shot, like, we're not doing the whole, like, you don't have to be racist, you don't have to be, like, intense, like, people are feeling uncomfortable and whatever about that, so if you could be so kind as to kind of be aware of that, and to kind of, like, whatever, like, because I don't know, maybe he might also be on the spectrum, because if it's literally like, you have to then explain what's going on to him like 3 times, even though, like, after he's checked out for the first one, right? Oh, he comes back, it's his turn, and then you tell him what happened, and then you have to then tell it to him again. It's like, that seems weird. To me, that also reads like, maybe his mind isn't in time. Maybe he's got a really extreme case of, like, ADHD or autism or something, like, or maybe not, like. So again, issue being too is, like, if you're not doing anything, if you're not correcting his behavior at all, if you're not trying to really, like, why would he assume anything's wrong? Like, why, and that's my point. That's why, again, he's doing, I feel like, more in ignorance than it is like, he's just, It's not okay by any means at all. I'm not saying that it's okay, but I'm also saying, like, you're quick to just fucking demonize and try to say this dude's racist or being racist, where it's just like, well, to me, from the way you wrote it, it looks like he's just trying to play an orc character, like, really in-depth in orc, whereas it's not very original. It's not very, like, nuanced or complex, which I'm not, but it doesn't necessarily seem like he's deliberately trying to be a dick either from anything like that. I think that's the biggest aspect of it. It doesn't seem like anything you've written here of the guy seems like he's deliberately trying to be an asshole to people outside of game. Like, it seems like he's too wrapped up in his own shit, in his own mind, and his own fun to be able to be considerate of the actual people around him like he should be. And if that's the case, it's like, well, in my opinion, give him a chance. Check his shit real quick. Tell him, hey, I'm sorry. I feel like, again, if he's talking over other people, check him for a minute. Say, I'm sorry. I think you were talking over her for a second. I think she had an idea. Let's take a second to, like, listen to her, and then you can submit your idea as well. Like, as like Sam said, if you are literally a 20-year so-called fucking veteran of this, and you wanted to impress your girlfriend that you're dating of your GM chops, what better way than to act like an actual goddamn adult and manage the issue? And yet you didn't, and then posted this on Reddit. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think we're both happy that you did, because this is more content for us to talk about, so we appreciate that. But it is also just like, again, OP, you came across a bit of a douche at the top, and the rest of this is like, yeah, this guy's behavior definitely isn't awesome and great, and it would be very annoying and frustrating. But at the same token, it's like, well, have you didn't even try talking to him after the fact. Like, you were just like, I lucked out and I didn't have to actually do anything personally, like, because he was ill and didn't come. And he says ill with quotation marks, meaning, I get, maybe it was just an excuse. Whereas at that point, maybe it also was, maybe he also did realize, oh man, people aren't really liking how I'm playing, and he felt really self-conscious, and he just didn't come back because he felt embarrassed, maybe. Like, and again, I could be wrong. I could absolutely be wrong. And it's like, his dude maybe was just being a total douche, but from the way that it was written and portrayed, I just don't get the impression that he was trying to be deliberately shitty to anybody. Like, I think he was kind of just a bit of an ignorant, kind of just stuck in his own mind, like, unaware dude. He was just being obnoxious. He was just a bit obnoxious because he was stuck in his own thing.
Yeah, my favorite thing is, and that, my friends, is why you don't just watch, but intervene as a DM, because otherwise you are just as bad as the problem player. And then the guy said, it probably doesn't look like it, but from the post, but I did question it multiple times mid-game, and I just don't think he listened to a word that anyone was saying. And they responded with, it's not about questioning, it's about putting your foot down and shutting that shit down right away. And honestly, like, it's harsh, but yes. Like, there is a social contract when it comes to things like D&D and, like, collaborative games and stuff like that, where, like, if you guys talk about it and you say, we're not allowing this, you don't just let it be allowed after the fact and not say anything or really stop them from doing it. Because I'm sorry, but being like, oh, hey, don't do that, you're not fixing anything. You have to actually put your foot, like, if you do that again, you're gone. It's that simple. It's not hard. Everyone can understand that. Even this guy who doesn't know how to listen. Like, it's easy.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, you
continue to act this way, you will not be acting this way at our table. It's not that hard. It's super easy. Like, I don't know.
I mean, I get it. Like
it's not even like this dude was friends with all of them.
He wanted to be, though. Like,
he wanted to be, but like,
the intention was that he did want to make this like a new friend group. But at the same time, it is just like, hey, he is clearly being a disturbance. He's being disruptive. And a lot of people are finding it difficult. You literally asked them, they said this, they're finding it difficult to really focus and whatever with him acting that he's acting. So, like, in any position, when you are the person with the most authority, you got to step up. You got to put your foot down. Again, just manage it. Like, you don't have to be a dick. You don't have to be a jerk. Like, you don't even have to do a quote unquote confrontation. You can literally, as I just gave an example before, oh, he's talking over somebody else, you can say, oh, wait, I'm sorry, hang on 1 second. They were talking first. We just want to kind of hear their thoughts, their idea second or first, and then you can let us kind of know what you're thinking as well, and then we can debate there. Like everybody, if they have some ideas and thoughts, should get a chance to be able to speak. Like that's great way to just deliberate and to just, put it down right there. And if he keeps doing it, then you have to be like, do you remember what we said before about everybody getting a chance to talk? Like, we can't just have, because again, he's apparently making the excuse where he's just like, oh, well, I mean, it didn't seem like anybody else was saying anything, so I guess that I should just take the lead. Where it's like, okay, well, next time, why don't we deliberately give other people a chance to do it then? Like, let's say, okay, sure. Because again, that can happen. To be fair, there are plenty of moments where it's like NPC asks a question or something and like silence, right? Nobody necessarily steps up right away because everybody's just waiting and we're like, whatever. Like, okay, so somebody else has to kind of take the flag and go forward with that. Nothing wrong with that. Again, maybe that didn't happen here per se. Who's to say for certain? Either way, if that is what the problem player believed at the time, fine. Then next time, we're going to deliberately allow someone else to take the lead if they want to, all right? Or even to say to them, hey, before you take the lead, just ask real quick. Get a gauge of your fellow players and be like, does anybody else want to go? Or like, are we cool if I take the lead? Like, again, that is easy. That is an easy thing. You don't have to confront. You don't have to whatever. You just give literally separate options where you literally just address the thing at hand. You didn't do it in an asshole way. You're just like, hey, okay, that's what you thought. All right, for now, we'll believe that. So then from there, we're going to say, okay, ask first or just let somebody else go. Like, don't just launch off, take a second, ask, and then go. And then if he keeps doing it, then you boot him. Then you fucking kick his ass because then it's like he either is deliberately unwilling or he literally there's something going on with his mind where he's not actually capable of really performing or operating cohesively and cooperatingly with group of people. At which point, while it sucks, it's not your job to manage that or deal with that, to be fair. And if it's negatively impacting, then you have to do what's best for the majority group at that point. Which it could become harder, but you still should do it because that's your job as the GM. You literally took on that responsibility. Also because maybe you were trying to impress and show off a little bit. So man the F up, my dude. Like, again, no offense, but man/woman the F up and do the thing that you said that you were gonna. But with that, let's go ahead and let's move on to the next one, y'all. This lovely little story is titled My DM Wants to Restrict Everybody Since He Doesn't Like Things He Doesn't Understand by Aggravating Meat 5575. Dude, this particular one, like that title alone elicits such a visceral reaction in me right off the top that I was just like, oh God, through pre-powdered, all right, kind of ready to go. Let's go. And this just has a personal, I think, hit maybe for me too. Let me know what y'all feel about this as well, because I don't think overall the content is too heavy. But you know what? Let's just get into it. Hey y'all, this is my first time posting. I didn't really know where else to post this, but I thought this would be a good place to start. So, some background info. I'm playing with a group of friends I've known since high school. We've been playing for a couple of years now, and we used to switch DMs so that nobody got stuck as the DM. This was mostly me and one other friend. He stopped playing a year ago, so at that point it was, just me left. One of my players wanted to try DMing, however. We agreed and started with just one-shots or modules so he could get a feeling for it and like stretch his, GMing legs a little bit. Now we're at the point that he runs almost all of the games, and I, every now and then, like to do some one-shots since I've lost a lot of free time with work recently. Current situation. Last week, he didn't feel like he liked the current campaign anymore and wanted to start over. A completely new, fresh campaign. Now, none of us were really against it since there wasn't exactly a real story in the current campaign that was keeping us tied. And so this new idea kind of just sounded like it would be more fun, or just kind of just for fun. We all agreed on the terms that some of us could use our old characters since we really liked them and we didn't want their stories to end. This was fine to him. We decided to hold a session 0 in 2 weeks and for new character ideas to get to know more about the campaign and all the other good to know stuff. Yesterday, we received a message in our WhatsApp group with a list of all the things he was going to ban and what he was going to allow in his new campaign. Now, I understand you don't want any broken, unearthed arcana, bullcrap, etc. That's fine. However, this is where the problems start. The first thing that doesn't quite sit right with me is the fact that he doesn't want dark vision at all. We're allowed to play as races who get dark vision, or if we by any means gain dark vision by like classes or feats, the warlock invocations, for example, but he will just end up ruling out that dark vision doesn't exist. That is apparently a complete non-thing in his campaign. His argument for this was that he could not do anything with the surroundings since 2 of the 5 players had dark vision. So he couldn't possibly do any surprise attacks or create any real sense of fear or foreboding in the environment because of this, according to him. Next thing he goes on about is that he's going to ban races that to him don't feel like are something, or a little bit of a typo here, don't feel like something he could work with for his story. He gave an example for Azamar. Since he does not understand the race or their backstory, he doesn't feel like he can run them or have them in his game. Which was kind of crappy since this was something a player had already asked about for the previous character that they had that he already approved. And so this player was obviously not really happy with the arbitrary decision change, I guess. He also started to suggest character classes and ideas/builds to 2 of the new players who are basically brand new to D&D and don't really know anything. According to one of them, he already made a character for them to play, so he really is just kind of forcing it on them. And the player hasn't even agreed to anything yet. The rest of this he wants to explain more once we actually get to session 0. So does anybody have any tips that I could use to actually talk with him about this? I don't feel that it's justified to restrict your players in character ways just because you as a DM don't like the way the character is. And I want to talk this out rather than just drop the campaign since we've had a lot of fun in the last year together overall. I want to do a part 2 after we had this session 0 to see what else he wants to go do. But in the meantime, any advice is open and welcome in post. Yeah. So honestly, this post is I do feel a bit of a pretty deep tie to it because this kind of thing I think can be a huge problem in a lot of D&D games. First off, I just want to say this, GMs, you are always more than willing or you are always more than allowed to make your game how you want to make your game. It's your game. It's your world. It is a thing where it's hey, if you don't want certain races, certain classes, certain whatever in your game, then you do have the power and the freedom and the right to ban those things. I think that is just fair. That is just what it is. On the other hand, to that though, I will say I personally, as both a player and a GM, I do not really agree with that. There are, for me, I think there might be maybe one thing, maybe 2, maybe 1 or 2 things in the entire game currently that I might just outright ban. And even then, I feel because I would still be open to tweaking them. I would still allow them if we could tweak them to make them more reasonable. For instance, the Sentinel feat, right? We talked about this during our feats episode, where one particular ability, the ability to, attack an individual and stop their movement speed on an opportunity attack. My issue with that being is it doesn't stipulate any restriction to that at all. You can do that to any sized creature, at any point if they're within you, whatever. And I'm that's a bit ridiculous and busted because they can't even, unless they use some other abilities, they can't get away from you at any point then. But other than some stuff like that, where it's a clear overpowered or just like a poorly written descriptor that leaves way too much open and abstract information or interpretation. Other than that, I'm like, no, all this stuff is in the game. All of this stuff is part of the game, and you can usually work around it pretty easily. Like, you know, I don't personally understand the concept of restricting any races in a game, so long as it makes sense that they could be there. And even then, I'm like, I feel like you could still justify it. You know, maybe like basically being like, oh, you can't play Azamar. Why? What's the restrictor for Azamar here? Like, you don't understand their backstory. What do you mean you don't understand their backstory? Azamar can basically just be any character or creature that has like divine lineage, divine roots in their lineage, whether it comes from a celestial, a god, demigod, whatever. Like, what? How? What, I don't understand how that's difficult to do. Do you not have gods in your game? Do you not have magic? Do you not have angels or any celestials? Like, you know, like I don't really get that concept myself. What do you think, Sammy?
I don't know. I mean, like the reality for me is like I'm super friendly to like people not getting things or not getting things the first time or the fifth time or the sixth time. Like just people like this in general. I played with plenty of people like this, but I feel like there should be like a certain cutoff of like if you just can't grasp this thing we're trying to do together and this stuff that we're putting our time in together, then like maybe we just don't do this anymore. Like not in like a mean way of just like maybe this isn't for you. Maybe this really isn't your steez.
I mean, that's what I mean. You know, it's like
eh,
I wouldn't really want to. I don't really like to play in games where
I
GMs are gonna restrict, like, you know, where it's like, okay, like, is there a reason why? Like,
yeah.
you can. I'm not gonna say that you can't, because it's your game. You can do whatever you want. But you know, personally, I don't think I'd be particularly interested in that. If it's gonna be like, because you're gonna restrict this for reasons that don't entirely make sense. Like, again, if it was just like, oh, elves don't exist in this world, where it's just like, oh, okay, I guess it's fine. Elves are really cool and like to play them, but I guess if it was like a really good enough game, and I like really trust the GM, I might be more at liberty to do that then, where I'd be like, okay, you know, I've had some really amazing campaigns or experiences with this GM in the past, and if he's making this particular restriction, it's like, you know, there's still plenty of other races to choose from. Sure, you know, there's still plenty of other whatever. Like, I love elves a lot, but plenty of other amazing races that I love just as much too. So, all right, cool. I mean, again, it always just it feels just weird to me personally. Like, again, any what else you got? Any other thoughts? Like,
For me, like I feel like that's just kind of what it like this person needs to either get in their own head that they just need to read it and figure it out and be okay with not knowing everything, or just find a group that is completely within their whims, because this is just annoying.
I
This would
mean,
annoy the crap out of me. I'm sorry. Taking away dark vision is dumb, because if you don't like it, then play around it. Not
I
telling people
mean,
you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't, with not a real explanation
I
or
mean
a real good reason
that's
for
the
any of
biggest
it.
thing. Yeah.
Like there's like fuck that. I don't no. Like I wouldn't play in that either. Like
I mean, like the top comment down below is like, so I feel like restricting races and maybe even classes is fair and also kind of common, as not all races work for every setting. As we were saying, some of my favorite campaigns I've played in had restrictions in that regard. I also get his argument for dark vision, as it can certainly complicate things for a GM, though to be fair, it has a limited range, so he could play around with that. I mean, that's kind of the point. I also get wanting to help newer players with character creation. That said, I suggest you talk to him during your session 0 and explain how his restrictions make you feel. It's fair for the GM to make restrictions, but if the players are not enjoying the game anymore, it doesn't really help anybody. I mean, I think that sums it up quite beautifully. And to Sam and this poster's point, dark vision is not like I completely understand. I know a lot of people do have a bit of gripes with it in the community, that like so many races have dark vision. It's true. Almost every race in fifth edition has dark vision. Like the vast majority of them do. I think a lot of the newer editions might not anymore, but a lot of the races do. But it also makes sense for why they do, and even with dark vision, it's still only 60 feet. You know, like plus a lot of the time you can offset that by using magical darkness, which makes that null and void anyway. And but I get definitely the idea. This post, this commenters thing is like, it is fun to basically be like, hey, you have a creature that can see and you can't see. You know, that instills a certain amount of fear and does instill a bit of a challenge in the party or the enemies or the players to try and overcome this. Like, because I have played in moments and in situations and in encounters with that in place where it's like, yeah, you can't see, but your enemies can. The issue being is like, there are plenty of ways to get around that, though. You can just make enemies who are able to conjure darkness, magical darkness, that they can see through. Like, you can do that. Because if you're just going to ban the race or the abilities entirely anyway, why don't you just make enemies who you can make that situation happen for them? That's their thing. They're ambush predators or creatures or beings that have that particular capacity. Like, it's not that difficult. There are plenty of what's, god dang it, I'm blanking on words today. It's so annoying. There are plenty of what is the word when it's like something has happened already? So like there are plenty of like things to pull from. The precedent. There is plenty of precedents for that to happen, for you to have certain creatures or enemies or monsters that have the ability to create maybe darkness or fog or whatever other, you know, obscuring ability or element where your players can't necessarily see, but the enemies can. And that creates that scenario. So rather than taking things away from the players, why don't you, as the GM who can just do that shit, give yourself something to help kind of establish within reason and fairness, you know, what you're trying to accomplish here. I don't know why that's so much harder than trying to just take away from the players, from what the players can do. Like, but with that, I think we basically hit the nail on the head with that whole thing. That's our 2 cents for that particular thing. I have just a personal gripe with that. I don't like the mentality of wanting to take away from the players rather than just give yourself more tools to do what you're trying to do, right? Like, I don't like that mentality. I don't like the mentality of trying to take away rather than to just give yourself more to work with. But with that, let's go ahead and move on to the next story of the day. Go ahead and take it away, Sammy.
Yeah, we have healer accuses necromancer of abuse, then threatens to leave the game.
Yeah, go ahead.
There's a self-harm warning.
Yeah, it's a bit of a trigger warning.
Not a huge one, but
not a big one, no. But it's still good to be aware, is all. So
this is before I get into things, some background is needed. I just started a new campaign not too long ago. Feeling good about the players I've selected. 2 are friends I've played with before several times, and 2 are new. Also important to note, this game is being played entirely online. The 4 players are Sorcerer, who is one of my friends IRL, Necromancer, who is new to my games, Healer, who I've played one-shots with before, and Pugilist, who is also new to my games. After I'd gathered the players, we all assembled for session 0. We had a fun time, outlined the lore and homebrew I'd be using. Everyone got along well, and all was good. Fast forward to the day before session 1, and there's a small dispute between Healer and Necromancer. The players have been talking about their classes and such, and the Healer made a comment about how she felt useless because other players had buffs. The way it was written came across as a joke, which is what the intention was. Necromancer responded by saying some of the ways druids could get in DPS and other forms of utility, and Healer gets mad. Eventually they work it out, and I don't need to get involved, and we start session 1 in good faith. As session 1 begins, I go through the introductions. Each player gets a chance to show off their character's personalities, and things continue without any problems. At the end of the session, I ask if they would like to take a short rest, to which the group agrees, why not? The day after is when trouble begins. Pugilist asked in chat why exactly we took a short rest, because we didn't exactly spend a lot of resources. The Necromancer links a web page that lists some things you can do, and it says things like training, hit dice, etc. Healer then enters the conversation and makes a comment about how it's not really worth it because training takes forever. Okay. Necromancer says they were only linking possible options, and that most were for flavor, not rules as written. Healer then says, just making a friendly remark, guess I'm not allowed to talk now. So this already. Ugh.
Yeah, it seems like Healer's already triggered for some reason.
Yeah. The
Which
Necromancer replies with, that's not what I said, but if you have an issue, we can handle it in character. Um, I'm just going to remove myself from the situation. After this, the healer begins to DM me, saying that what Necromancer said hurt their feelings.
okay.
I said I'd talk to them about it, and shortly afterward, healer messaged me again saying that they abused them and triggered their PTSD, and Necromancer is making them feel unsafe. I continue to say, uh, I continue to say I will discuss with Necromancer, but they begin to adamantly request that Necromancer needs to be kicked from the game because of what they said. Note, this entire time they have not cited any previous messages between the two, nor even mentioned that anything happened in DMs between them, so I ask Necromancer about it. They explain their side, and I end up agreeing that Healer is overreacting. By the time I look at my DMs with Healer, they have begun to rant about how everyone is discriminating against them for their autism, that this is abuse and bullying, and that they are going to OD on alcohol if nothing is done. By that time, I've already decided that I was not be kicking the Necromancer, and when Healer learns this, they completely lose it, going off that I am discriminating, that I must hate them because I won't do what they want, etc. Eventually, they leave the server before I have a chance to even talk to them. They leave with a message of saying they'll probably OD because of the rampant abuse of the Necromancer. I kind of feel responsible for what happened, even though Healer was definitely overreacting. So do you think I could have stopped this in any way, or was Healer at fault here? At this point, I'm not entirely sure, but I hope they end out okay.
Woo,
Yeah, when
that
someone
got out of
threatens,
hand real quickly. Like that
yeah,
escalated really fast. Woo! Oh boy.
yeah.
What are some of your thoughts on this one, buddy?
Um, if I'm gonna be honest, um,
Please do. You know, that's what we're here for.
yeah. So I'll say this. I don't when someone starts throwing things like um
Abuse,
yeah, abuse
uh,
and stuff like that into it.
bullying, discrimination, like
Yeah. That's when I immediately am like, no, I'm good. I when you tell me that like you're threatening to hurt yourself because of something someone
I
said
mean,
is the that's you've automatically destroyed that for me.
yeah, that the obvious threat of self-harm, literally basically as you're holding yourself hostage to make somebody again agree with you or manipulate them to do, you know, things that you want them to do, that is never a good look at all. I think in any way that right there heavily just like cuts any legitimacy or any real like genuine stance or like yeah, legit issue that you may have had. Like obviously we don't know the full we don't know the full context of everything that was going on and happening. From what OP says when they talk to Necromancer, it seems like OP now agrees that Healer is overreacting, because I will definitely say, just from what was written here, like her, like if it happened just the way that OP is writing, and Necromancer basically just put in a list of shit or whatever, and then Cleric comes in or Healer comes in and is like, oh well, it's not really worth it because training takes forever, which is like, I'm not really sure what they mean by that, unless they're trying to talk about like how I know that there is like an actual, I think, rule in the game where it's like you can literally tell the GM like during downtime that you're going to try to train like a certain stat to help increase your attributes, because there are very few ways to increase your attributes in the game aside from just the level ups that you get, aside from specific level ups. But you can attempt to actively train stats. But they do, however, they usually take a very long time to actually be able to like level them up. That is a thing. So they might be referring to that specifically. And so I would understand them saying like, you know, it's not really worth it because it takes forever, which is like, they wouldn't be wrong about that. Like they wouldn't be wrong, or she wouldn't be wrong about, you know, kind of claiming, hey, engaging you're doing it. But you know, I don't necessarily think it's not worth it, because it also is more of like a flavor thing. Like, what else are you going to do during downtime? You can just literally say, my character is going to do this for downtime, if you don't have anything else to do, or if you are really trying to hardcore get that, if you get the opportunity for your characters to have long stints or just long durations of downtime, why the hell not? You know. But I don't feel like the way Necromancer responded, though, I don't feel at all it warranted her response back, where he was just like, oh, well, you know, he was just saying like, you know, they were just possible options, and you know that most were more so for flavor, kind of like what I just said, and they're not like necessarily rules as written. So this one wasn't even technically rules as written in that way. And then Healer immediately just goes by like, oh, well, you know, just making a friendly remark, you know, guess I'm not allowed to talk now, like going just real passive aggressive, even like out of nowhere, like again making it seem like just because he responded in the way that he did, that it was like he was somehow putting her down or making a derogatory remark about what she said, which I don't get that at all myself. Yeah, I don't know. It seemed like maybe she had a lot of just personal confidence issues that, for whatever reason, were getting really heavily triggered and like and hit here, and she just couldn't sort that shit out well, and kind of just had a bit of a breakdown or a meltdown afterwards. But it's I don't know, because it also that she does kind of come across as a bit of an emotional manipulator, unfortunately, with again her just kind of right out the gate DMing the GM, and is like, okay, he hurt your feelings, that's perfectly fine. Like they're like, if that's the case, that's perfectly fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And it's like, you know what? That's perfectly good. Yes. If you want to just be like, you know what? I felt like my feelings were hurt by what he said. Okay, well, let's talk about it real quick. All right. What exactly did he say that you felt hurt by, you know? And if it's this, okay, well, let's try to clear this up. Let's see if that's what they meant, you know? The issue is that they say that, and then they immediately just like start going off that they are the necromancer not only just hurt their feelings, but they're just straight up abusing her and then triggering her PTSD and is making them feel unsafe. So it's like, okay, from what again, what is necromancer doing that's making you feel that way, or that's prompting you to feel that way? Like,
Yeah.
again, do you have any private messages or something that are you guys talking one-on-one, and they're saying some really messed up, you know, creepy or offensive shit or something? Like what is it, just from the conversation that we all just saw there? Like what, you know? And if they're not able to like whatever, and even when the GM is saying, okay, I will discuss this with necromancer, but then Healer is just immediately pushing for the GM to kick the necromancer without apparently any, again, evidence or anything other than the Healer just saying, this is how he's making me feel. It's like, okay, he's making you feel that way. All right, I'm not gonna say he isn't, because you are feeling that way. So can we figure out why? Like can we try to figure out why? And if the only answer is like, no, you just have to kick him. Like, I demand that you kick him right now because he's making me feel this way. And you're just like, well, I mean, again, you can't, I'm not saying that, you know, she wasn't maybe feeling the way that she was feeling. I don't necessarily think that she was maybe lying about that.
I I mean I do.
I
I
mean,
don't
that's a,
know. There's something about like so you don't have DMs to show me, so there's and all your other conversations are in a chat that's in general. It just sounds like someone who's crazy. Like, and I feel bad that that's something you're going through, but like there are just genuinely some people who just
well,
can't
but that's
handle
what
it.
I mean. Like again, like it's like that's why it's like I don't think she's lying about how she's feeling. Like I think maybe she is legitimately feeling that way, but just because you are feeling that way doesn't mean someone is actually doing something to you. If they're actually doing something bad to you, like that's the issue that I've found that I've seen with a lot of people, where it's just like, okay, again, I'm not gonna say your feelings are invalid per se. You're feeling the way that you're feeling. But just because you're feeling that way doesn't mean that that person did that to you or made you feel that way. Because the reality is that if people could make people feel anything, why wouldn't people just make people feel good all the time? Even when they were doing shitty things to them. It's like, if I could, if I could just do shitty things that benefit me and don't benefit you at all, but I can still just keep making you feel happy anyways, like, why wouldn't they do that? So the vice versa
Yeah.
is also true. It's like, sure, a person who does a shitty thing to you, it's like, well, you feel bad from that because you view it as a shitty thing. But also, it's like if a person maybe tries to do something shitty to you, like tries to insult you, but you don't necessarily even realize it's an insult or you don't take it as an insult, you don't feel shitty. You're just like, oh, hey, thanks, man, or whatever. And, you walk, you're fine. And so, again, the same thing is true. It's like if a person does something, they can't make you feel any way that you don't choose to feel. And so in this, it's like she's clearly choosing to feel this way. Like I assume maybe she's got a whole headcanon thing in her mind about what the necromancer is saying or thinking or trying to do with her or to her or whatever, which I honestly I kind of highly doubt is the case. And yeah, a lot of people I feel like just have a lot of problems and issues being able to reconcile how they reacted to something, how they feel about something with the reality of the situation. Whereas he didn't actually do or say anything derogatory or offensive or whatever to you. So
No, it doesn't actually seem like that at all.
if you're not, if he didn't actually do anything and you're still feeling a ways, and that unfortunately that's more of a you thing than it is a him thing. Like, but a lot of people, I guess, don't really want to, talk about that or acknowledge that a lot of the time, which is unfortunate. So, I would say, OP, if you're ever watching this video, no, I do not believe that there is anything that you could have done to stop this. It seems pretty clear from what you wrote. If this is the actual course of events, she was already kind of on a downward spiral, like right away. Like she literally got from like perfectly reasonable saying he hurt my feelings to he abused me, triggered my PTSD, is causing me all kinds of stuff, like making me feel unsafe. Like you have to kick him, like that, like that is like a kind of thing where it's like she went from 0 to 100 real goddamn quick for seemingly no reason. And if she doesn't have, like Sam said, if she, like I mean, it even says here, the OP says she didn't even make the claim about there being a private conversation.
No.
She didn't even say like he was saying or being acting really creepy or behaving really weirdly in some like other private conversations that we've had or something. Like,
No, it was just, oh my god, I can't believe no one's doing anything to help me about this thing. Da, 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 da. Like, it's nonsensical, and like I hate to be that guy. Like I am sympathetic to those who struggle, but when you are at that point in your life where you're making it other people's problems, I I I, I have a hard time being as sympathetic
yeah.
because now it's everyone's issue.
Well, and
And
not
I
even again, not even necessarily a fair issue where it's like, here's the thing.
no.
It would be if he was legitimately doing something, then yeah, going to the GM and talking to them, and it would then be the GM's job to be like, okay, yeah, do you want this person, in your group who's doing something like this to another player? Like that, that is a fair thing. But what do you do when a player isn't doing something to another player, and but that player is claiming that they are, and you're just like, what? But there's no indicator, no evidence of anything like that happening. Like so it's like, but they are adamant. They are adamant and believe 100%. And then when the GM responds again, in my opinion, a perfectly reasonable way, all of a sudden, then the healer then starts attacking them and saying that they're discriminating against her now, and all of that stuff, and again, discriminating for their autism on top of it, like that. It really does just kind of come across and reek of victimization. It just seems like she just constantly wants to be a victim. And the issue being is maybe she probably was an actual victim at one point, maybe in her past, and instead of maybe trying to overcome that, now it seems like that's her go-to thing. Maybe I don't know. I could be wrong too, and that maybe she is just lying. Maybe she is just like, she's one of those really horrible, horrendous, terrible people who pretend to have all kinds of shit to justify their shitty, fucked up behavior. But I don't know. Like I like to at least maybe even give people the benefit of the doubt of like, maybe she is really feeling that way. Maybe she's just not entirely balanced or stable, in herself. And so she really feels those things, but it's just not necessarily really happening the way that she thinks it is. And, I don't know. It's just kind of sad to me, honestly. The situation kind of just comes off as sad for me because, yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Agreed. You know what? Let's go ahead. Let's move on to the last story of the day. This one is titled DMing for Kids Gets Complicated, by The Crooked Path. I have two boys who are just under a year apart. We'll call them Nipsey the Druid and Chopsy the Barbarian. When the boys were in 6th and 7th grade, Nipsey, the elder of the two, was really bummed because the RPG club at school was only catering to the older kids, and that he and his friends were pretty much ignored. I told him to just have a few of his friends over on Saturdays, and I'd personally run a homebrew game for them. Bro, freaking parent of the year right there. That shit's awesome, dude. That is some shit that their children will freaking remember for their entire lives. Like that is just, I love that. I hope maybe one day to be able to do that myself. Like that I love that so much. He tapped three friends for the game, and Chopsy asked his friend from the neighborhood to play. We'll call her Shootsy the Ranger. My wife and I played host for these kids every Saturday. The first campaign was 2 years long, running from 1st to 15th level. My wife even co-DM'd. We made D&D themed food for special occasions and gave out reroll coupons on birthdays. And when that was finished, we ran a few shorter games. The game was absolutely fantastic, and for the most part, everyone had fun. But I occasionally had to juggle roles between GM, host, and dad, correcting some inappropriate behavior, offering advice, keeping other parents informed, etc. This was, however, very important socializing time for Chopsy, because he was on the spectrum and has a hard time making friends. Dude, they did this they did a campaign for 2 years, bro. That's awesome, dude.
I know, that's why I liked this one a lot.
That's fucking amazing. Like 2 years, and then even after the campaign, the main campaign was finished, kept doing like shorter games. Like, I love that, man. And then we're ending on a real wholesome note, kind of. Yeah, I'd say overall wholesome. I added the kids who had phones into a chat group so that we could post schedule changes, ask questions, and, do some downtime stuff during the week. Nipsey is going into his senior year now, and most of the kids have dropped out due to either scheduling or drama. Only my boys and Shootsy remain. I wanted to run one last hurrah before he graduated, so I posted a campaign premise and had them roll up characters. Shootsy was excited as always. When I carpooled the kids home, she would discuss her character until she was dropped off. Since my number is listed in the chat group, she has texted me personally with character details and asking when we can start. She'd stop over while the boys are busy and just hang out. We've told all these kids that our doors are always open if they ever need anything, so at first this wasn't really a big deal. Nipsey, however, didn't roll up a character sheet and generally just kind of made himself absent whenever she was over. I asked him about it one time, and he admitted that things have been rather awkward between him and Shootsy since they had tried dating for a few weeks. But supposedly they both agreed that there was no real chemistry. But apparently it left Nipsey with a bit of a bitter taste. That's how you know maybe this breakup wasn't entirely mutual, unfortunately. I'm sorry, bud. That does suck. For her part, Shootsy had apparently stopped socializing with the boys pretty much altogether. Well, maybe it wasn't exactly mutual on her part either then. Okay. Oh yeah, kind of strange. Okay. Realizing that my sons were not really part of the picture and that I had a teenage girl visiting and texting me left me with a pretty bad case of the ick. We never talked about anything outside of the tabletop games, and my games were decidedly PG-13, but I was suddenly very concerned about being a miscommunication away from serious issues with any of the kids or the parents involved.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a fair, I think, worry. I probably should have sat Shootsy down, and had an honest talk about it. But instead, I chose the coward's way out and just had the boys tell her that my schedule is too full to run a game this summer. The boys are looking into alternate transportation to school this fall. My wife thinks I worry too much, but agrees that the game was for our boys, and we shouldn't be forcing them to play with someone they don't feel like running with. I feel like I could have handled it in a more mature fashion, but it definitely felt safer to distance myself from the whole thing as quickly as possible. In post. Yeah, honestly, I mean, still pretty wholesome, all things considered. Like I think his aware. I really, OP, I really will applaud you, like, on your awareness and self-awareness of the situation and kind of what was going on, especially with the fact that you were able to notice kind of the dissonance between your boys and Shootsy and stuff. And inquired about that, and really asked, and it's like shows that you do legitimately care and you're aware, and I love that. It's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I understand where you're coming from in terms of, like, you took the coward's way out. I don't think it was the coward's way out necessarily, though. Like, yeah, you could have maybe sat her down and had a conversation with her about it. I don't necessarily know, like, if it would have done more so. Like, because I guess the question too being is, like, how it negatively maybe impacted Shootsy as well. Because if it didn't, if it's just simply the disappointment of, like, well, we can't run the game anymore and that's about it, then I'd say no harm, no foul. But if it's like, if she felt like, if you just disconnected entirely, and now, even though, like, we've spent so much time together, maybe she viewed you guys as kind of maybe like a surrogate family as well or whatever, and now, like, if you're just gonna
Now you're
cut
saying
off,
they're like, oh,
yeah, now you're just kind of disconnecting entirely. It's like, maybe she might feel like a weird sense of rejection, or like maybe she did something wrong. But I mean, if you're not doing that, then it's like, I don't think you did anything wrong. And even in that, I don't think you did something wrong, because I understand your worry. Like, your worry is fair. If you don't feel comfortable being in that situation, it's completely reasonable and rational for you to try to take yourself out of it, because
yeah.
it is, like, yeah, it's a thing in today's climate where people often will make the worst assumptions of a situation in people, which is very unfortunate. It's exceeding unfortunate that is kind of where we're at these days, because it's just become such a common occurrence.
Yeah, like people are so ready for it.
Yeah,
Like,
as disgusting as that is to say, it's really unfortunate. Yeah, like, because I mean, you've known her since she was young, like, since you, well, like what, if it's 2 years, and Nipsey is 18, so he was 16 when you guys kind of started, and that's, so then both Chopsy and Shootsy would be like 15 or whatever. So it's like, that's not a lot. That's not a short time. You guys, and if you guys had a campaign for 2 years, you guys have had so much fun. Most likely, you have done all this stuff. Like, you gave out birthday gifts and special themed food on a cake, like that. You probably made some of the best memories of her life at your house playing those games with them. And it is unfortunate that Nipsey and her kind of, like, they gave it a shot, and it apparently probably didn't end great, and now that whole thing is like, ew.
Just kind of sour everything.
Yeah, well, it can. I don't. I feel like it shouldn't, but I know that it does, and it will for people because it's just people can't get past that. Even though they no doubt have way more great, amazing times together than they do maybe more bad or whatever. Like I don't know, because one thing I will say, and to be fair, he's still only 18, but like if the breakup was truly mutual, and it can be, it absolutely can be. I don't know why Nipsey's having like bitter taste with it. Like I don't know why it has to be
Yeah, that like what
so
happened.
awkward. Yeah, like what like if it was truly mutual, if you guys are just like, oh, there was no real chemistry, then if he really felt that way, why does he have a bitter taste then? Like why is he feeling whatever about it? Like that makes me feel like that maybe was her thing where and it is another thing being too is that like Shootsy apparently just stopped socializing or interacting with either of the boys apparently altogether, which is like, what's up with that? What happened with that then? Like, I might then say it's like maybe she might then just be using Shootsy and Nipsey for their dad for D&D games, which probably isn't great. Like that might be the
No.
only real questionable thing here, because otherwise, I don't know. Like I don't even really like to theorize about it because it's like overall, I would say this post just as written is all pretty amazing and wholesome. It's all very just pretty, beautiful, and wholesome. And I don't even really want to speculate on like the underlying potential dark shit or whatever that maybe is going on.
Yeah.
Like I will say, like top voted comment down below says like sounds like a tough situation all around. And regardless of your method of cancellation, I think you made the right call. If 2/3 of your party are not having fun, the game isn't really fulfilling its purpose. Hopefully, Shootsy finds another table to play at in the future. Like, yeah, you know? And it's like, I think, you handle it just fine, OP. If you ever see this, like, I don't think you made a poor decision or a bad decision so long as, you're able to uh clarify or reassure, I should say, should see that it's not anything personal to her. She didn't necessarily do anything wrong. There's not
Yeah.
necessarily anything wrong with her. You just yeah, you were busy, and I hope that she doesn't necessarily take it as long as she isn't actively trying to use your boys as a means of just being able to play D&D like that. Again, that might be a little manipulative, but she's also a freaking 16, 17-year-old girl, so I mean plenty of things are happening. You have plenty of things to learn and about
Yeah,
yourself
there's
and
a lot
and
more
and
there.
others. um so yeah,
It's
either
unfortunate.
way.
I think this is just a case of someone who maybe doesn't have a lot of friends or is maybe just a little bit of an outcast finding a safe space in someone that is unfortunately not the right person. You shouldn't really,
Yeah.
that's not really how you should be treating your friends' parents unless, unless that's, the understood relationship. It's like a little saddening in all honesty.
I mean, it is. It is sad to see like that such a an iconic time and thing that was like so important kind of end like it is, because especially when it's like he wanted to do like a last hurrah for his boy before he went off to college, and couldn't really because the two of them I guess are feeling really awkward, and it's yeah. But overall, I still think that this post is super hella wholesome and we love it. And I'm honestly happy that we were able to end off today's video with that one, y'all. Thank you guys once again, as always, for coming along with us. If you stuck around up to this point, we appreciate it immensely. We hope you enjoyed. Again, leave in the comments down below some of your thoughts on these posts, if some of your own experiences and such. Um, we always are so interested to hear again what any of you guys maybe think or feel have to say on this. And thank you. We always appreciate it. So be sure to join us next time when we take another deep dive back down into the archive. So long, y'all.
See ya.